If you look at the history of global infrastructure,
Mm.
um, there is this really fascinating phenomenon called technological leapfrogging.
Oh, yeah. It's honestly one of my favorite economic concepts to study.
Right. Because it happens when a developing market just entirely skips an older legacy generation of
Yeah.
technology and, jumps straight to the bleeding
Why?
edge.
They don't bother with the intermediate steps.
Exactly. Like, we saw it happen when massive parts of the world completely bypassed building those costly copper wire landline telephone networks.
Right, they just went straight to mobile phones.
Yeah. They didn't have to tear down old, bulky systems to build the new ones. They just built the future on, like, a totally blank slate.
And that blank slate advantage, I mean, it is arguably the most powerful economic force of the 21st century.
Absolutely.
Because when you aren't burdened by decades of outdated mainframe-era technical debt, you can architect a society's digital foundation with incredible speed and efficiency, really.
Which brings us to the core of today's deep dive. Welcome, by the way. Today we are looking at a masterclass in this kind of aggressive, large-scale technological leapfrogging.
We really are.
Yeah, we have been analyzing the corporate footprint, the strategic updates, and these massive product catalogs of a company called ATMC.
And they are quietly but very rapidly becoming an absolute juggernaut in emerging markets.
Specifically by architecting the digital plumbing for entire nations, which is just wild to think about.
It is a phenomenal case study, really. It's about identifying a massive macroeconomic gap and building a highly specific, geographically optimized bridge to fill it.
So let's map out that bridge for you, because the geography here is totally the secret to their scale.
Yeah, the geographical strategy is everything for ATMC.
When you dig into their operational blueprint, they have explicitly bifurcated their business model.
Right, they split it right down the middle.
Exactly. So on one side, you have their headquarters and their massive primary development centers located entirely in India.
Which serves as their brain trust, basically.
Yeah, it's where the heavy engineering, the data architecture, and, the actual coding happens.
Well, and India has spent the last 40 years building an unparalleled institutional ecosystem for software development.
Oh, for sure. The talent pool there is just immense.
Exactly. The sheer volume of senior engineering talent, the mature security protocols, and just their capacity to build robust enterprise systems at scale, it's unmatched.
But a massive development center in India is really only half the equation, right?
Yeah, because you can build the most elegant software in the world, but if you don't have a mechanism to deploy it into local markets with actual local trust, well...
It just sits on a server doing nothing.
Exactly. It's useless.
Which is why the other half of their bridge is so fascinating to me. They aren't just selling software over the internet and hoping for the best.
No, they have a highly physical presence.
Yeah, ATMC has built this vast, deeply integrated execution arm. It's a massive sales network made up of channel partners, local agencies, and franchisees.
And this is where the scale gets kind of mind-blowing.
It really does. This network currently spans 20 different countries across Africa. We are talking about active, on-the-ground presences in places like Nairobi, Johannesburg, Harar, Addis Ababa,
Kampala, Windhoek.
right, Kinshasa, Lilongwe, Gaborone, Lusaka, Luanda, Djibouti. I mean, the list covers nearly the entire continent.
And their recent social media campaigns are signaling an aggressive push into the Middle East as well.
What's fascinating here is that the synergy is completely deliberate.
Oh, absolutely. You have the mature, high-capacity tech engines of India feeding directly into the hyper-accelerating, mobile-first digital markets of Africa.
Because African nations have some of the youngest, fastest-growing, most digitally hungry populations on the planet right now.
They do. The demand for streamlined tech solutions, mobile apps, and digital services is just astronomical.
But the bottleneck has historically been the lack of local, high-level software development capacity to meet that specific demand.
Right, and ATMC recognized that structural bottleneck and just positioned themselves perfectly astride it.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because understanding where they operate leads us directly into the friction of how they operate.
And this is where things get a bit contentious, right?
Frankly, yes. This is where I start to look at their claims with a highly critical eye.
The product catalog.
Yes, the catalog. According to their public profiles, ATMC is bringing a library of over 500 ready-to-deploy software solutions, mobile apps, web portals, and ERPs to these markets.
500. It's a huge number.
Over 500 distinct software products. And they claim to integrate artificial intelligence, machine learning, and data analytics across this massive portfolio.
I know where you're going with this.
My immediate reaction to that number is just extreme skepticism. Isn't 500 products a recipe for spreading yourself way too thin?
It sounds like a logistical nightmare if you view it through the lens of traditional bespoke software development.
Exactly. I keep thinking about this like a restaurant with a 50-page menu.
Oh, the menu analogy, yeah.
You know what I mean. If I walk into a place and they offer authentic sushi, wood-fired pizza, gourmet tacos, and traditional French pastries, I instantly know that none of it is going to be good.
You know the sushi's going to be terrible.
Right. They are spreading their resources, their ingredients, and their chefs entirely too thin.
Yeah, that makes sense.
In the tech world, maintaining, patching, and pushing security updates for 500 isolated code bases sounds like a recipe for constant system crashes and massive technical debt.
It would be impossible.
How does a company realistically manage that without just collapsing?
Well, that skepticism is totally warranted, but the restaurant metaphor actually misrepresents the mechanics of modern enterprise architecture.
Okay, how so?
Because they aren't cooking 500 different meals from scratch every time.
So what are they doing?
A much more accurate way to look at this is the skateboard chassis model, like the
Yes.
one used in modern electric vehicle manufacturing.
Oh, okay. Walk me through that data flow. How does an EV chassis translate to software?
Okay, so in EV manufacturing, a company will spend billions developing one single incredibly robust base layer. That's the electric skateboard chassis.
Right, which has the battery and the motors.
Exactly. It contains the battery packs, the drive motors, the suspension, the central computer.
Yeah.
That core base layer is identical across their entire lineup.
Okay, I'm tracking.
So if you want to sell an ambulance, you just drop an ambulance shell on top of that exact same chassis.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and if you want to sell a luxury sedan or a delivery van, you drop those respective shells onto the exact same underlying mechanism.
I get it. So ATMC isn't building 500 different back-end architectures.
Not at all.
They are building a highly centralized, composable foundation.
Yes. The developers in India have built foundational software engines. We're talking core modules for identity verification, payment processing, relational database management.
Inventory tracking, things like that.
Exactly. Inventory tracking, analytics, dashboards. These core engines are battle-tested and rigorously maintained by that huge engineering team.
So the 500 solutions
Are actually just customized front-end applications. They are the shells dropped on top of those core engines.
Oh, that makes so much sense. I see the mechanics now.
Right.
So, like, the underlying relational database module that tracks the inventory of spark plugs for an auto parts store in Nairobi
Yes, that exact module.
is mechanically identical to the module tracking antibiotics in a clinic in Lusaka.
100% identical. The only difference is the user interface, the local language localization, and the specific workflows tailored to that industry.
Which means when the engineering team in India patches a security vulnerability in the payment processing module.
That update automatically propagates across all 500 solutions simultaneously.
Wow. It completely eliminates the technical debt of maintaining isolated code bases.
Exactly. It's incredibly efficient.
That dramatically shifts the viability of their business model.
It does.
And it also explains the sheer necessity of their massive franchisee and agency network across those 20 African nations.
Yes, because of the distribution challenge.
Right? If you have this vast library of composable architecture sitting on a server, you still need a highly localized distribution mechanism to actually get it into the hands of the end user.
And that local partner model is the absolute genius of their execution strategy.
Why is it so critical, though? Couldn't they just run Facebook ads?
Well, no. Software adoption in emerging markets is heavily reliant on high-trust relationships.
Oh, that makes sense. Face-to-face trust.
Exactly. An enterprise software firm based thousands of miles away in India cannot easily navigate the cultural nuances or the local regulatory framework.
Let alone the complex relationship-based business cultures of a city like Kigali or Maputo.
Right. You can't just drop a cold email to a hospital administrator and expect to revamp their whole IT system.
But a local entrepreneur who spent their life in that city already has that network.
They have the trust.
They know the hospital administrators, they know the regional supply chain managers, they understand the local friction points.
But that local entrepreneur likely doesn't have the capital to hire a team of senior software engineers to build enterprise-grade apps from scratch for those contacts.
So ATMC steps in and offers this revenue-sharing ecosystem. They essentially provide a business in a box.
That's a great way to phrase it.
The local franchisee or agency acts as the trusted face of the operation. They handle the customer acquisition, the sales meetings, and the relationship management.
And then when they secure a contract, say, to digitize a local logistics firm, ATMC provides the world-class, ready-made IT solution from their library.
It's a win-win. The local entrepreneur gets to build a highly lucrative tech business with zero technical overhead.
And ATMC achieves deep, localized market penetration that would be literally impossible to orchestrate from abroad.
It is a brilliant distribution of risk and reward.
Truly.
But having a brilliant distribution network is only half the battle. Here's where it gets really interesting for you listening. We have to look at what these composable software solutions are actually doing to the macro economies they are entering.
Because the impact is massive.
Right. If you drop this level of digital infrastructure into a developing market, you don't just optimize businesses. You fundamentally alter the financial plumbing of the society.
Which brings us directly into their fintech and banking deployments.
Yes, specifically their work with SOCOs and microfinance institutions.
This is where the theoretical architecture hits the ground and actually changes lives.
For context, a SOCO is a savings and credit cooperative organization.
Right.
In traditional Western economies, the average citizen interfaces with massive multinational banks. But in many of the African markets ATMC is operating in, the barriers to entry for those multinational banks are prohibitively high.
Oh, incredibly high. Multinational banks require strict formal identification, documented credit histories, and relatively high minimum balances.
Which a lot of people just don't have.
Exactly. That rigid legacy framework inadvertently locks out a massive sector of the population. We're talking smallholder farmers, informal market vendors, independent artisans.
And these individuals are entirely bankable, right? Just not within the parameters of traditional finance.
Precisely. They have cash flow, they have businesses, but they are invisible to the big banks.
So they turn to SACOs, which are essentially community-driven credit unions.
Members pool their savings together.
Right, and issue microloans to each other. It's a vital lifeline for small business capital. But the historical friction here is severe.
Because of the analog nature of it?
Yes. Many of these institutions have relied on literal paper ledgers. An administrator literally writes down deposits in a notebook.
Which means transactions are slow, the risk of loss or corruption is high, and...
You certainly can't build a verifiable national credit history off a physical ledger sitting in a back office.
No, you can't scale a notebook. And this is where dropping a cloud-based ERP and customized mobile app from ATMC's library completely rewrites the rules.
By digitizing the Haitito, you instantly modernize the entire financial ecosystem for its members. But I want to push back on the reality of that deployment for a second.
Sure.
It sounds great to say, hey, we moved the paper ledger to the cloud, but what happens when the cloud isn't accessible?
Ah, the infrastructure problem.
Yeah, because many of these regions suffer from intermittent power grids, rolling blackouts, or highly unstable 4G internet connections.
That's a very real challenge.
If a market vendor needs to make a loan payment via their SanaSo app and the cell tower goes down, does the entire financial system just freeze?
Well, that is the exact kind of critical infrastructure hurdle that composable architecture has to solve. And it usually does so through offline-first data caching.
Offline first. Okay, explain that.
The ATMC mobile applications and their local point-of-sale systems are specifically designed to operate asynchronously.
Meaning they don't need a constant live connection to the central server in India to function.
Exactly. If the network drops, the vendor can still make their loan payment.
How? Where does the data go?
The local app cryptographically logs the transaction, updates the local balance right there on the device, and holds that encrypted data packet in a secure cache on the phone. And then the moment the device detects a stable cellular or Wi-Fi connection, even if it's hours later, it silently pings the central ERP, synchronizes the ledger, and reconciles the data.
That's brilliant. It builds resilience directly into the software.
It acknowledges the physical realities of the market instead of fighting them.
That offline sync capability is really the bridge between the physical reality and the digital ideal.
And the cascading effects of that digitization are massive.
I can imagine.
Think about it. Once that market vendor has a digital footprint within the SECO, they suddenly have a verifiable transaction history. They have data.
And data is the prerequisite for the next major sector ATMC is targeting, which is insurtech.
Yes. Insurance in emerging markets is heavily underutilized.
Mainly because the traditional actuarial models and the administrative friction make it too expensive and too slow to serve the average citizen. Right?
Exactly. If filing a claim for weather damage to your small crop requires traveling 2 days to a capital city, filling out reams of paper forms and waiting months for a claims adjuster to physically travel out and verify the damage, the utility of that insurance drops to basically zero.
Nobody is going to buy that. But ATMC's InsurTech solutions, which the sources heavily emphasize are driven by AI and data analytics, introduce the concept of parametric microinsurance.
Parametric insurance fundamentally shifts the mechanism of how insurance operates.
Let's trace the data flow on that because it's super cool. Let's take a farmer in Kenya.
Okay.
They don't buy a massive, comprehensive annual policy. They use their phone to buy a micro policy that covers their specific plot of land against drought, but only for the highly vulnerable 6-week window right after planting.
And the parameters of that policy are established entirely digitally.
Right.
The ATMC InsurTech platform integrates via API with local satellite weather data or ground-level meteorological stations.
So if the weather station registers that rainfall has dropped below the critical threshold for 20 consecutive days,
The system doesn't wait for the farmer to file a claim.
the smart contract just triggers automatically.
Exactly. The AI verifies the data, authorizes the payout, and routes the funds directly to the farmer's mobile money wallet instantly.
That completely removes human bureaucracy from the claims process.
It does. And the reduction in administrative overhead allows the premiums to be priced affordably for the microeconomy.
Plus, the instant, transparent payout builds immense trust in the financial system. If I get paid out the second the rain stops, I'm buying that policy again next year.
Exactly. And when you start layering these systems, when a citizen has a digital identity through their Cisco and a verified financial safety net through parametric microinsurance, the state eventually has to interact with them in a digitized format.
Right. The civic infrastructure must upgrade to match the financial infrastructure, which leads us directly into ATMC's deployment in e-government and health tech.
Upgrading a nation's civic infrastructure is often compared to upgrading an operating system. You are replacing the foundational rules of engagement between the state and the citizen.
Think about the friction of the analog state. If you are an entrepreneur in Yaoundé trying to open a new storefront, the traditional bureaucratic drag is staggering.
Oh, it's paralyzing for small businesses.
You might have to visit the municipal tax office, the zoning board, and the commercial registry.
All in different buildings.
Yeah. That means standing in physical lines all day, dealing with lost manila folders, and navigating the opaque realities of low-level civic administration where paperwork routinely goes missing.
Right. The sheer time and energy required to simply comply with the law stifles economic velocity.
But by deploying integrated e-government web portals, you collapse all of those physical lines into a single digital interface.
Let's walk through the mechanics of that interface because it's really how you eliminate the friction.
Yeah, how does it actually work?
It utilizes OCR optical character recognition and biometric integration.
Okay, so a citizen uses their smartphone.
Right. They take a photo of their physical identity card. The ATMC portal's AI extracts the text, verifies the face against the state's secure database, and issues a cryptographic session token.
Boom. So the citizen is now securely authenticated without stepping foot in a government building.
Exactly. And then they can apply for that commercial license, upload their zoning plans as PDFs, and pay the municipal fee instantly using the integrated mobile payment gateway we discussed earlier.
And the license is issued dynamically as a verifiable QR code right to their device.
The state benefits from instantaneous tax revenue collection and massive reductions in administrative overhead.
And crucially, and this is huge, because every step of the transaction is digitally logged and time-stamped, it dramatically reduces the avenues for petty corruption.
You cannot easily bribe an automated API.
No, you can't. That is a profound elevation of civic efficiency.
It changes the entire relationship with the government.
And that exact same logic, eliminating the fatal friction of analog record keeping, is what drives their health tech deployments.
Right. They're solutions for hospitals and clinics.
Which is arguably where data latency has the most severe consequences. I mean, we're talking about lives here.
In a high-volume, under-resourced hospital setting, information bottlenecks don't just cost money. They severely impact patient outcomes.
If a patient arrives at an emergency clinic in Lusaka, and their medical history, their known allergies, and their previous prescriptions are sitting in a physical filing cabinet across town.
The attending physician is operating completely blind.
Yeah, which is terrifying. Yeah. So ATMC deploys electronic health record, or EHR platforms to unify that data.
But the EHR is only the patient-facing side. What truly optimizes the healthcare system is the back-end ERP managing the hospital's physical resources.
Right, because a hospital is essentially a massive, highly complex supply chain.
Exactly. It's a supply chain of very critical goods. The ATMC software utilizes predictive analytics to track the inventory of all those medical supplies.
So it's monitoring the consumption rate of IV fluids, antibiotics, antimalarial medications.
Yes. And instead of waiting for a nurse to manually notice that the stockroom is empty, the software's AI models predict a shortage based on current admission rates.
Wow.
And then it automatically generates a purchase order to the regional medical distributor days before the shortage actually occurs.
That is shifting the entire healthcare infrastructure from a reactive stance to a proactive stance.
Yes, it saves lives.
But that brings up an interesting connective tissue. If the hospital software is automatically ordering antibiotics, those physical boxes of antibiotics still need to be manufactured, shipped, tracked, and delivered.
Yes, software can't teleport physical objects.
Exactly. The digital economy is useless if it cannot move physical goods, and that requires a massive leap into the commercial backbone of ATMC's portfolio, which is e-commerce, retail, and logistics.
A critical mistake many people make when analyzing digital transformation is assuming that e-commerce is just a digital storefront.
They think it's just the app where the customer clicks buy.
Right, but the storefront is just the absolute tip of the iceberg. If a customer clicks buy on a beautifully designed app, but the warehouse behind that app is being managed on a whiteboard,
And the delivery drivers are manually calling each other to figure out who is taking which route.
the entire business model collapses under its own weight within days. It just can't scale. True e-commerce requires the end-to-end digitization of the supply chain.
And when you analyze the ATMC product catalog, you see they have built modules for every single link in that chain.
They really have. They list manufacturing, wholesale trading, retail point of sale, transport, and logistics.
Let's follow a product through that digitized chain to really understand the mechanics of it.
Sure.
Imagine a regional manufacturing plant producing consumer goods. They utilize an ATMC ERP to manage their raw material procurement and oversee the production line.
And as the finished goods roll off the line, they are instantly logged into the cloud inventory.
Right. Those goods are then sold to a massive regional wholesale distributor. The distributor's ATMC software interfaces directly with the manufacturer's API, seamlessly transferring the inventory data without any manual data entry.
Then the logistics and transport module takes over.
How does that part work?
Well, the software analyzes the delivery addresses for hundreds of local supermarkets. It utilizes AI and geospatial data to calculate the most fuel-efficient delivery routes for the trucking fleet.
So it's factoring in local traffic patterns and vehicle load capacities.
Exactly. It optimizes the physical movement of the goods.
Finally, the physical goods arrive at the local supermarket. The cashier scans the item using the ATMC retail point of sale system.
And that single barcode scan does a lot of heavy lifting.
Yeah, it instantly deducts the item from the local inventory, updates the central accounting ledger, and pings the regional distributor to trigger a restock order when the inventory drops below a specific algorithmically determined threshold.
And because of all this interconnected data, the store owner can pull up a dashboard on their tablet and see in real time that a specific brand of soap is selling 40% faster on a Tuesday afternoon than it did last week.
Which allows them to adjust pricing dynamically.
Yeah.
It literally provides Amazon-level logistical oversight to regional African supply chains.
It's incredibly powerful. But this level of ubiquitous, rapid digitization across banking, healthcare, government, and logistics, it exposes a massive, looming structural crisis.
You're talking about the human capital bottleneck.
Precisely. You can deploy the most elegant, AI-driven logistics software in the world, but if the local workforce doesn't understand how to interpret the analytics dashboards,
Right, if the hospital administrators don't know how to navigate the new EHR system.
the technology is effectively useless. Software doesn't operate in a vacuum. It requires a highly trained, digitally literate human layer to wield it.
Which perfectly explained the incredible emphasis ATMC is placing on EdTech right now.
Yes.
When you look at the recent campaigns from their Africa and Middle East divisions, they aren't just selling ERPs. They are aggressively pushing custom-built learning management systems.
LMS platforms.
Right, LMS and comprehensive e-learning platform.
Because they recognize that they have to actively build the human infrastructure required to sustain the digital infrastructure they are selling.
And the language they use in their corporate messaging is very revealing here. They highlight things like intuitive and engaging digital learning environments, interactive course creation, and seamless user management.
They are very intentionally distancing themselves from those clunky, text-heavy, frustrating academic portals of the early 2000s.
Those were the worst.
Right. They're building platforms that feel more like modern media streaming services. They're designed to actually retain attention.
While they certainly market these to traditional schools and universities, the true strategic value of these LMS platforms lies in their application for corporate learning and development, or L&D.
That's where the massive scale comes in.
Let's map out why that is so critical for scaling businesses. Let's return to our earlier example of a massive regional bank.
Okay.
Suppose this bank decides to roll out a complex new digital wealth management product across 5 different countries.
A huge undertaking.
Yeah, they have 5,000 employees spread across hundreds of remote branch locations. How do you ensure regulatory compliance and operational competency for 5,000 people simultaneously?
Well, in the analog era, you would have to organize massive, rolling physical seminars, fly regional managers to capital cities, or distribute hundreds of pages of dense PDF manuals that, let's be honest, nobody actually reads.
The logistical cost is astronomical, and the verification of learning is nearly impossible.
Right. So instead, the bank deploys an ATMC learning management system.
And the central HR and compliance teams use the platform's authoring tools to build modular, video-based training courses.
Which they instantly deploy to the mobile devices of all 5,000 employees.
The employees consume the microlearning modules during their downtime. The software tracks their progress, administers localized quizzes to verify comprehension,
And generates real-time analytics for the central management team.
so the bank can see exactly which branches have completed the certification and which individuals require targeted intervention.
By providing these bespoke edtech platforms, ATMC is giving these massive enterprises the tools to rapidly upskill their workforces asynchronously.
It ensures that the human intelligence within the organization can scale at the exact same velocity as the artificial intelligence powering their systems.
It's a macroeconomic force multiplier, truly.
It really is. But amid all this discussion of massive top-down systems, national e-government portals, international supply chains, multinational banking networks, there is one highly specific piece of ATMC's strategy that seems to completely contradict this macro focus.
I know exactly what you're talking about. You are talking about the laundry app.
I am. It is the most fascinating outlier in their entire public portfolio.
It really is incredible when you look at it in context.
Right. Because you read through their materials, and they are talking about revolutionizing the financial plumbing of a continent, upgrading the civic operating systems of sovereign nations. And then their social media channels pivot to enthusiastically pitching a concept for a local laundry aggregator app.
Feels so random.
They post things like, imagine the convenience for customers, just a few taps away from clean clothes. And imagine connecting all the local laundry places right through one app.
They are literally handing a fully formed, hyper-local business idea to their followers and saying, let's build this.
Placed next to a hospital resource ERP, a laundry app seems almost absurdly trivial.
But strategically, it is the most revealing piece of marketing they have.
I've been thinking about the mechanics of this, and I realize it's a proxy. They aren't actually obsessed with laundry.
No, not at all.
The laundry app is simply the most universally understood, easily digestible example of the Uber for X business model. It is an aggregator architecture.
Let's break down the technical requirements of that aggregator architecture.
Yeah, let's do it.
To build a functional laundry aggregator, you need a multi-tenant user profile system. You need live geolocation APIs to match the user with the nearest available vendor.
You need a highly secure mobile payment gateway.
Exactly. You need real-time push notification tracking so the user knows exactly when the driver is picking up their clothes.
And you need a two-sided marketplace backend to manage the financial split between the app owner and the laundry service.
And here is the genius of the proxy. That exact underlying architectural blueprint is identical whether you are delivering clean laundry, hot groceries, plumbing services, or freelance graphic design.
The code doesn't care what the physical service is.
Not at all. By heavily promoting this relatable laundry app concept, ATMC is broadcasting a massive signal to the grassroots entrepreneurial layer across those 20 nations.
They are telling every ambitious local founder, you do not need to raise millions in venture capital to hire a Silicon Valley engineering team to build your platform.
You just need the local market insight.
Right. If you know that your specific neighborhood in Kampala desperately needs a reliable courier aggregator We already have the core code base built.
We have the developer army in India ready to reskin the user interface, and we have the server architecture to scale it instantly.
It drops the barrier to entry for complex tech entrepreneurship down to absolute zero.
It democratizes the ability to build a digital platform economy.
They are essentially arming the microeconomy while simultaneously building the macro infrastructure.
And when you step back and look at the totality of what we have mapped out today, for you listening, the scale of this operation is truly staggering.
It really is.
They are utilizing the deep, mature engineering capacity of India to forge an incredibly adaptable library of composable software.
And they are deploying it through highly motivated local partners to aggressively digitize the fastest growing continent on Earth. They are providing the tools to bank the unbanked, to cut the red tape of state bureaucracies, to optimize the flow of critical medical supplies.
To track the logistics of physical goods, to continuously educate the workforce.
And yes, to empower the local founder trying to streamline how you get your laundry done.
It is an immensely optimistic vision of technological deployment.
And it forces us to look beyond individual apps and isolated solutions. The velocity of this deployment is creating something much, much larger.
It always does. You have to look at the horizon.
So what is the ultimate trajectory here?
Think about the nature of composable architecture. Right now, ATMC is deploying these as discrete solutions. A SACO uses the finance module. A hospital uses the health module. A ministry uses the e-government module.
Sure.
But all 500 of these solutions share the exact same underlying data structures. They are built on the same foundational APIs. They speak the exact same digital language.
Oh man, I see where you're going with this.
What happens in 5 or 10 years as these markets mature, when these isolated systems begin to interconnect?
Wow.
What happens when the health tech portal naturally integrates via API with the e-government identity portal, which seamlessly feeds into the banking app's credit models, which interfaces instantly with the retail logistics supply chain?
Because these platforms are all native to the same ATMC ecosystem and fueled by interconnected artificial intelligence, the friction of integration is practically zero.
Exactly. So we aren't just looking at the deployment of individual software products. We are watching the foundational scaffolding being laid for a fully integrated, frictionless, cross-border digital economy.
And they are building it entirely from scratch, entirely bypassing the legacy systems of the traditional Western tech hubs.
They are building the Megacity modularly today. The question is what the global economic balance of power looks like when they finally flip the switch and the entire interconnected grid comes alive at once.
That is a massive paradigm shift to mull over. The center of gravity in global tech is shifting rapidly, and it is fascinating to watch the architecture being built in real time. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the mechanics of tomorrow's digital infrastructure. Keep questioning the systems around you, keep exploring the mechanics of how the world actually works, and we'll see you next time.